All right, awesome. Well, thanks for joining me, everyone. This will be a developer playthrough of Exit Corners. I'm Max, or Percon. I made this game. This is going to be a pretty casual playthrough. I don't have any script in front of me. I'm just going to play through and, talk about the creative process and stop on some certain puzzles or lines. Otherwise, I'm going to be going through at like normal reading speed. There will be full spoilers throughout this playthrough, so I mean, if you are interested in playing through the game in its entirety and have not done so yet, and spoilers and stuff matters to you, I mean, just know that. I don't think anyone watching right now would be super aware of the game if they weren't like super already caught up and aware of all the things that happen in the plot. Cool. I'll actually, before I even get into the story, I guess I'll just talk a bit about the the main menu even. I will. Thanks, everyone. I will be looking at chat, and I will answer questions. But so feel free to ask questions, I guess. This game is not coded well at all. I don't use any of the modern things that you would use in Unity to do like menus and stuff. So the fact that I even have small like animations on these buttons is almost a miracle. You can see there's some bugs that you can activate. But I managed to get it all working in the end, and I was very limited in terms of like art direction. I decided to like a monochromatic, very like black and white blocky look played well into the negative space sort of theme in Exit Corners. Also, it's easy to do, and if you're not really experienced in like UI design and stuff, the fancier you try to make it, the worse it looks. So coming from someone who is not good at that, keeping it simple, I think worked better here. Options, extras. I'm not going to go into the options or anything. The options are done poorly and not saved very well, just like the normal save data in the game. But with Seance, I've like totally addressed all the things I talked about here, just because I'm more experienced in building things a bit more properly. I see the lost your die click here, which I had to add in an emergency because save data loss was so frequent because player prefs on browser are like not reliable, and it's just so hard to debug. My browser pretty much always kept save data, so it was really hard to debug when other people were having those problems. So I opted for this thing, and then you can do unlock everything, catch up tool. Catch up tool sucks. It's so annoying to go through, but it just is kind of like a necessary evil for a game this inconsistent in terms of like saving your data. Anyway, I'll get started. The ticking sound here in the the chapter name, it was actually pulled from the first version of Battle of Wits, the song, which was like is the puzzle theme. So we weren't using that original version anymore, but I decided to reappropriate the ticking from the start of that song. Cool. So we have this scene at the very start here where Ink is talking to, who is it? I don't know. Talking to himself, maybe. Talking to the sponsor. And this, the opening of a game is really important, and I'm not going to... I'm not going to say I did an awful job here, but I think I spent way too long on it, and it is also a little bit too long. When you got a mystery, you do want to ease people into it, and I use this opening to, one, communicate to everyone who who the main character is, Ink. Also to show people what Ink looks like, because you don't see him except for in CGs. And I did have a sprite commissioned of him, but it would not make any sense for that to appear in game at all. So I just have him popping up in a minute here. Yeah, so this does some like, some expository stuff right out the bat. Like, oh, you live in Bellbridge. I'm a university student. My name's Ink. Good books and cheap beer. It's fun. I actually wanted to wait a little while before replaying through this. Replaying through the game so I could look at things with a bit more fresh eyes. Did I struggle with deciding Ink's name? Funnily enough, Ink's name is like the first thing I came up with in the whole game. I'll keep talking about this, but I'm actually going to pull Ink up on screen here, so it's a little bit more visually interesting to look at. Yeah, the first thing, one of the first things I came up with was not even the plot or anything. It was like, Ink is a cool name. And then I started thinking, like, well, that's not no one would be named that. But I'm like, oh, well, this seems like the kind of name someone would choose for themselves. So I'm like, okay, what are the circumstances where, like, someone might have the name Ink? Was just some sort of early character stuff. And actually, I'm not going to say the first version of Exit Corners, because I was thinking, when I was like, oh, I want to do a game, I want to do, like, a visual novel, I want it to be a mystery. When I was thinking of that kind of thing, my first thing I thought I was going to seriously pursue was actually a zombie story. Some people are stuck on campus, and there's like a zombie infestation. They're boarding up, and and I wanted to play with some classic zombie tropes, in some fun ways that I'm not actually going to mention in case I ever do make a game like that. So I'm not going to say too much more. Not ever going to say too much more about it. But actually, no, I'll say it because I have so many game ideas. This one's never coming to light. So the first game I wanted to make was a zombie story where, some university students are like stuck. They're like boarding up their campus, and there's like zombies. There's zombie infestation, and some people get bit or whatever, and then you make decisions like, you cast them out if they get bit, or do you kill them, or do you keep them alive, or whatever. And what I wanted to do was play with the zombie tropes that we know, and the characters in game would know them too. Like, oftentimes in zombie movies, you'll see they don't know what zombies are, and they come across a zombie and like, oh, what is that? And they're like, oh, you have to shoot him in the head, and stuff like that. But I wanted to make a universe where everyone was very familiar with zombie tropes, and it was like, oh, you got bit, well, you can't stay here. We all know that if we leave someone who's bit in our group, they'll go crazy and bite everyone eventually. But then I wanted the big twist of that game to be, the zombies aren't. It's not like a virus or anything. It's like necromancy. So all the tropes you were trying to follow throughout the story, and you're thinking these characters are being very savvy, is totally totally wrong about how zombies work. Which I think is kind of a funny idea, and I still might do something with that at some point, but it's not really enough for a full game or anything right now. But it's a funny little play on the tropes. Anyway, so there's some more. My name's Ink Greer. Some more expository stuff, and then Ether comes in. It's the Wake Up Chrono, Wake Up Sleepyhead, classic game opening. And here's the Four Elements Hotel. This was 3D modeled by like a friend of a friend, basically. The 3D modeling went through a couple different people, so some assets were shuffled around, but the end result ended up being pretty okay. I wanted something like that would work on a budget where we could reuse a lot of assets. Part of the reason it's in a hotel, because a lot of the rooms and stuff are very samey, even though like I ended up making some like multiple bars and multiple hallways and stuff. Not the most exciting thing, but just sort of a function of the resources I had at the time. Question: do you worship our Lord and Savior Lises? What? I'm gonna stay out of that. Anyway, So that's why a lot of the backgrounds are 3D. In Arc 2, I actually didn't do the 3D very much because I sort of lost contact with the person who was doing it, and I was already commissioning a lot of art anyway. Just let's commission some more art that's just make them nice and custom in a way that 3D. Like 3D can be custom, but like takes a lot of work, making more than just beds and doors and lamps. Some of this dialogue almost feels new to me just because it's been such a long time since I've read it. I'm a big fan of the little beeps when dialogue's typing out. Of course, like voice acting would be the dream, right? But I just really, really, really want a little bit of noise to break up silence. And I did a lot of stuff where, when it's typing out, it pauses it at periods and question marks and commas to give the lines actually some like cadence, so it really does sort of feel like someone's speaking, even if no one is speaking. And that doesn't happen for the narration. It's also funny to me, I've been working on Seance for almost like a year now, or maybe just over a year, and it is there's no narration in Seance. It's all just dialogue, which is kind of just a different take on it. I think the narration in this game is actually fine. I'm actually reading a lot of it later on. I don't hate it. Like it's so often I'll like write something and then hate it, but then if I come back to it a lot later, I'm like, and it doesn't really feel like I wrote it anymore. It's like, okay, that's not bad. So Ether and Ink waking up in the same room, same bed, just like really key bit of one, just plot pacing. You meet someone and then you're trying to piece things together. It's like, oh, they have an out on the town type thing, and then later it's just important to their closeness later on in the story, giving them a little bit of alone time at the start. So that's what's going on. The classic, I don't remember what happened. These backgrounds. So there's two types of backgrounds: long ones and short ones. Short ones only fit into the exact screen. Long ones obviously go a bit further, and we can pan left and right. Definitely a lot of extra. Like that's another thing that's good for 3D is like, the field of view can be a little bit wider without like actually drawing something that the player's not going to see for a long time, or not going to see for a long time. Yeah, not going to see for very long. This one it's just like the room pans over a little bit, and that's about it, and it'll pan over a little bit later. Also important to be able to hide the text box sometimes, so you can just see the nice art. How did I wind up in a hotel? Oops. Oh yeah, the log in this guy actually accidentally did scroll wheel up. Log in this game is just a simple scroll wheel up, which is not the best solution, but you can scroll back the whole episode and read things if you're really into delving into clues. So there's a lot of it's a little bit of a slow build here until people actually realize something very wrong is happening. First it's just, oh, I don't remember, and then it's, oh, my keys and wallet are missing, and then it's, oh, we're trapped here, and that kind of escalation is a bit nice. If I were to redo the intro, I would probably speed things up a bit and or put a puzzle in the first room here. But the way it is right now is okay too, or it is what it is. This was originally written, like the Ink and Ether originally was, this like whole section in the first room was originally a chapter 0 to the game, which when I was doing an episodic chapters would have been a separate one. But then I'm like, well, there's no puzzle in it, and I just mixed it with chapter 1. That's what I ended up doing. I still want to know who the mysterious investor person voice thing was. Well, that is the short answer is it's you, and the long answer is not a super fleshed out character, right? I do have some notes in case they ever do like a prequel or something and involve them more. I do have a vague like sort of character arc for them and how they got to doing what they're doing. But the short answer is it's just you. No one can remember anything. Choices. There are choices in this game sometimes. They don't matter all that much. This one was honestly mostly just to test the choice system. Implementing them in this game was so annoying, and I'm so glad I'm using Ink. Not Ink the character, Ink the scripting language now, because that handles a lot of this like script navigation work. I'm just gonna go the nice boy answer. Hey, and some music. More music comes in. This track, most of the tracks in the game went through 2 big iterations. When I was working with Julian, who's no longer doing music, but is still a cool guy. The first iteration sounded very different from this. Some other ones, like the Battle of Wits song, was the same melody, just touched up, and this one was completely redone. Ether! And of course, Ink wants to know how it's spelled. And yeah, I will be calling her Ether, not Aether. I call her Ether. A lot of times he, I'm actually just sort of catching this now, but he does make a lot of references to drinking, and at the time I didn't really think about that too much. But I hope I didn't, like, imply he's an alcoholic or anything. Doing a keg stand, I don't know. Oh, I'm having a beer right now. I do like a good beer. But I wrote this before I was, like... I got more into beers this year, just because of quarantine. I've been ordering from, like, local microbreweries. Oh yeah, actually, there was a couple posts on the Reddit that were asking how Ether was pronounced. And I said, there's no voice acting, you can pronounce it however you want, but when I'm playing through it, I will pronounce her Ether. There's a lot of... Sedona, who drew these sprites, was... like, she did a lot of work just making all the different poses, like, complete redraws of each other. Like, they're all, like, totally... Like, she didn't reuse any part of the last sprite for this new one. Which is, you know, a lot of people do that to corner cut. And that's not even a bad thing. Like, in Seance, we're doing that just to get things out cheaper. Dang, where's my stuff? But, oh, we still do have something. The PDA. So, this was designed, many years ago now. We're like, oh, what do they look like in the future? Because this was originally set a couple years in the future. But we should have just realized, like, a thing that has any space that's not screen kind of sucks. Like, all smartphones now are just like, it's just a big screen, and they're not square like this. This is actually one of the only things in game that I kind of did myself. I did this bad art. Like, I made the screen and the button badly in Photoshop, and then I just did some weird layering stuff. And then I just copied the layer a bunch of times, and it looks weird. It looks like a notepad or like a flip book or something. Anyway. 379, yeah. The 379 thing was, I think there's a lot of 379s in the game. There's actually, I'll see if I can point some more out that you might not have caught. Although, I think the fanbase has caught pretty much most of them. And I probably, as a plot element, I probably leaned into it a bit too much. I just thought it would be interesting to have like one of those, you know, recurring numbers that were like, you know, incorrectly guessed to be important. Like, you know, it's sort of an assumption that it's important on Ink's part, but because of the way the world of, you know, corners works. There's 79 days in March this year. That's a very good, it's a very good point. But yeah, I because the way corners works, you know, it ended up having meaning ascribed to it, which I think is kind of funny and true. Like, after working on this game, every time I notice a 379 somewhere, like, I have to do a double take, and I've like, you know, I've made maybe even a purchase I wouldn't have normally made because something was $3.79 or something, you know? So it's funny how things that don't actually mean anything, when ascribed meaning via something else, yeah. Yeah, totally. I use that in the game, Bader Meinhof, but not actually sure how to pronounce it, so I hope I pronounced it correctly there. This is a very sensitive scroll wheel, so I'll try not roll back unnecessarily. I'll be going kind of fast through any... I'll be going at normal reading speed, but might be kind of fast for some people, I don't know. If I don't have any commentary on stuff. Contact Sean Ward. Oh, look at this good contact menu with no buttons except Sean Ward. Not even a back button to go back to the home screen. Dang, whoever thought of that UI did not think it through. Spoilers, it was me. Oh no. Ah, she's got dad problems. There are no buttons in the future, that's true. Maybe you swipe to go to the other page. Yeah, but there's no like affordance there, so if that was the case, you wouldn't know because it's not communicated anywhere. Ah, yes. The contact screen. This screen is so buggy, and sometimes it just does bug out in game with the PDA thing coming at the start. Again, because I did things like wrong in Unity, I am surprised this works at all. Period. Beep beep. Contact list. And this, I gotta set up Sean as the jokes to here. Yeah, Sean's characterization in the first half is entirely via text. Frequent use of buddy. Ugh, this is so gross. Anyway, we'd definitely do this different. I would do this like a 9 slice if I were to do it today. Got the reflection on the screen, make it look a little bit more like a screen. Gosh, some parts of this game are just. Why is it on the left? You know, that's a great question. Great question. Let me just actually pull up my phone here. Yeah, definitely you go on the right for pretty much everything. That's fine. You know what? This is the future. You're on the left in the future. Oh, lots of comments here. Sorry. Yeah, so I did make this whole thing in Unity with no like back end anything. So like I wrote the script format and the script parser. I mean, I just did that whole thing, and it's not based on anything. I don't even use any of Unity's like animations or modern UI systems or anything. It's pretty bare bones as far as Unity goes. It's kind of nuts. In Seance, I use animations. I actually use like the canvas. This doesn't use the canvas. It just draws everything to the screen with like the GUI draw to screen command, which is insane. Like I like, now that I know how much easier it is otherwise, like I have no idea why I did. I mean, not no idea why I did this, but like no idea how I persisted through all the difficulties I did when there was so much easier options. Skip ahead a bit. Some of Ether's chipperness coming in. She needs to do that a bit now because when other people are introduced, she gets a bit more wallflowery. Oh, the detective sidekick choice. So I'd like this as just a little bit of a flavor, just a little bit of a flavor add. It doesn't really change much with the plot, but it just helps the flavor add. We'll go detective here. Yeah, this is the one thing I'm like, I'll just use it. I'll just take this choice and just use it everywhere. Because, people like when you do that. Not the most elegant solution, but, appreciated by some people. The Four Elements Hotel. This logo I did myself, which, this is one of the things I made for this game that I still think looks okay. Not necessarily in this setup, because this is made to look a bit more, I don't know, parchmenty or whatever. And it doesn't really make any sense. A hotel would have a picture of its own logo here. And I knew that making this, I was just like, we'll hope nobody notices. Just the logo is very reminiscent of, actually, it's reminiscent of my mother makes logos. It was like her career. And she made a lot of logos with these kind of pastel colors and shapes like this. I'm not going to say this is a logo that she would have made, but it is unconsciously even just inspired by that. And I still like the design. I mean, I still use it as my Discord avatar. The colors. I wish I can't pull that up now, but the colors are the four elements, right? They're a little bit non-standard. They're a bit more the color palettes the same my mother would use, but there's an orange for fire and two blues for air and water and a green for earth. Yeah, and earth is opposite of air and water is opposite of fire. And the idea is this is a hill, this is air, air that you can see. There's a drop of water. This is why I put it on the left, because it looks a bit like a drop. And this is like a mushroom cloud or something, I don't know. Yeah, very, very abstract, but I did try and make this as hill and valley on the bottom, because it's the earth, and then air in the sky, because it's air, I don't know. And then water on the left, because when it rains, it always rains from the left. I don't know. These ones don't make any sense, but... Oh, the slow pan. Just ray and breath. I do like the setup of you enter, and then these people who've come before you know more of the situation than you do, and then you're just only getting caught up to speed. Also, another thing, I borrowed this from I borrowed a lot of things from 999, the Zero Escape game. But whenever a character's on the right, the text box appears on the right. Just helps identify who's speaking, especially when you don't know their names yet. Actually, I even think this is, would you mind coming over here? This is Ray just met Ink and Ether, and this is the extent of his politeness. Would you mind coming over here? Not really something you'd say, and as the situation develops, he just becomes more and more impolite. And it's it's a good way. I do like how he was introduced with his cocksure attitude. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, I agree. I actually like the sprites the most in the Zero Escape one over the 3D models. They were bad certainly, but the sprites were definitely sweet. Of course, Ray tried kicking the door down. I think I did Beth a little bit dirty in the earlier part of the story. Earlier parts of the story, I don't give her as much opportunity for her personality to come through. Partially because she is more reserved than, say, Ray or Liza. But I wish I had given her a bit more early on to, like, because I'm talking all about these character traits I'm bringing up for Ray. Not enough for Beth. Not until, like, things start going more wrong. You start getting into Beth's story and who she is and how she reacts in adverse situations. I forgot about this. Yeah, this is like a weird, doesn't need to be here, just introducing the game elements. So this is the point where, like, I wanted something like the point where, like, the person's like, oh, something's very wrong. Something's, like, more wrong than normal. Early game, I would actually do a lot of cut-in CGs of, like, stuff on the walls or the screens, and I do that less later, just because I did want to put less strain on the amount of things you have to load. Because it's on web, it took so long to load anyway. I was loading it with a ton of assets. Goes back to wallflower mode. Everyone makes fun of Hank for his name. I want to do a little dorky thing with Ether there. I don't know if I'd probably redo that bit these days, but I think it's fine. Bold looks kind of gross in this game, unfortunately. Oh, another thing that's, like, I did a lot of logic with, like, inserting line breaks and, like, making sure things, like, wrap around okay. And it was a pain to get it to work. And then in, like, what I do here is, like, I type everything out one letter at a time. And then at every letter I check, oh, is it long enough? Or is it, like, longer than this text box? And if it is, I insert a line break. And if you press it, it just types the whole thing out. And there's a lot of issues, and when you start introducing, like italic tags and stuff, it starts to, like, not know what's what, so there's a lot of edge casey things where, like, it doesn't work ideally. And then in Seance, like, I just, like, thought of a different way to do it, that is, like, gajillion times easier, which is, in Seance, I have a rich text tag that makes everything invisible. So everything's already typed out, and I just move it up one character at a time. So it just reveals a character at a time instead of actually typing it out and then recalculating if it needs to be on a different line or not. Yeah. And I did, and then just, like, when you're starting out, it's like, oh, you see you see something happen and you try to reproduce it, and then later, like, there's just a smarter solution to this. And if I even want to go a step further in Seance, what I could do is, I'm using a rich text tag. What I could do is actually make it so that the vertex buffer, like, color codes their alphas, and you go just, like, left to right. Which is more intense, but would let me do some more stuff with rich text. But I don't know if I'm going to do that. I'm definitely not doing that for the demo. That may be more of a very, very polishy thing. It's, like, a lot of work for not a lot of gain. They talk about Belbridge U, the most, like, milquetoast university in the world. And I went to Untech U, so it's based on my shitty university experience. Whoa. Is Liza. Is everyone's favorite character. You know, I was, people love Liza. People really do like her now, and they really did not like her. Like, you look at, like, the Newgrounds and you know, congregate comments from early on, and it's like, I hate Liza. She's so useless. And then everyone who, like, stuck around to the end, it's like, oh, Liza's my favorite character. Yeah, a lot of love for Liza in the chat. And I was given some advice. Not advice, I was just told some information, I guess, and this theme owns. I was given some advice later on, not related to my game specifically, but their advice was, or their little tip was, Grumpy always wins. And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, that's a pretty reasonable rule of thumb. Like, grumpy characters are really well liked a lot. Grumpy always wins. The music in this game, I really do. I do still like a lot. I think it is quite cool. A lot of the tracks are actually like catchy. There's a little bit of Mario influence in the song actually, because the sound alike I gave for a mood reference was like a remix of a Mario Underground theme. So you can kind of hear that you can hear that coming up. One sec. Okay, wait, maybe not yet. I forget how the song goes. But in a moment, like, it'll do a little ditty that'll sound a lot like the Mario Underground bit. It's very different from Seance, which is going to have which has a very, like, the tunes aren't catchy. They're very ethereal. They're very like, they're more like spiritual. They're very, very different feel from like a music standpoint. I'm so excited for you guys to play Seance because I think it's shaping up to be a really cool project. Oh yeah, that was like in comments on it. Yeah, you gotta let people know you're a rich girl, which is not something people really do, but for the purposes of my expository storytelling, that's just when it came up. Bray not having he has a PDA, right? But he doesn't ever bust it out, which is useful because that means he gets more expressions that are not holding the phone. I did use Unity to make Exit Corners. Thanks for the question. It is made in Unity, and I mentioned this a little earlier in the stream, but I'll just repeat it here. It's not using any other additional plugins. It's like raw Unity, doesn't use the canvas, doesn't use the animator, doesn't use a lot of the modern things that in Unity make your life a lot easier. A lot of this is like all done via code using the very rudimentary Dropbox commands, and it made my life way harder than it needed to be, you know, as I found out later when I got better at Unity. But you know, once you're in, you know, Exit Corners was developed over years, so once you're in a certain amount of the way, like this feature's already done. I'm not going to redo it in a different, better way because it already works. Seance, I'm not saying my code's good now, but in Seance I'm doing things more like properly. So it's just a lot less work to get the results I want, basically. And it lets me do some stuff I wouldn't be able to do here, like using the animator to like actually like blurb things nicely, because all the quote-unquote animation here is like gross programmer tweens. Yeah, that's exactly right. But you know, that's part of growing as a game developer. Is just like, you know, you do it the hard way first, but then you have an understanding of like when you do it the easy way, you kind of know how the underlying parts work. Ray swears a lot. I'm actually like I'm not saying it's like someone in a situation like this would probably swear a lot, but he swears a lot. And that's something in Seance. I told myself I don't want a character who swears that much. So so in Seance I actually there's the cussing is toned down, and that way if I actually do need to pivot and just like get rid of the cussing altogether, just because like I'm trying to get published or whatever, it's not hard to do. So it's certainly that part is toned down a lot. Not that matters too much. And I guess that's the type of person Ray is, who just swears a lot. The audio balancing is not good. Where like the confirmation noise is like so loud, but whatever. Send went through a couple different iterations. I think I posted an old version of him where he had a nose. I really love the sound effect change when when Sent is talking. His is like square wave, where everyone else is like a sine wave or something. It just makes a very different feel, and that plus the green text really drives home that it's like a synthetic voice. Music's Corner is kind of stuck in that old code near the end of your program maturation. Oh, I mean, I wouldn't say. Well, yes, Exit Corners did have a lot of stuff at the end where like, I'm doing this very wrong, but that's how it's done now, so I gotta keep doing it that way. So there's a lot of that. I wouldn't say program maturation is the thing that happens and then you're good. I mean, you're always learning, right? So even though I'm doing things more properly now, I'm sure by the time I make my next scan, I'm gonna be like, what was I thinking when I did Seance? You know? The animations that for Sent are also not done with the animator. They're done with just like timers and like, well, I just eyeballed it and like, oh, this feels right, and then I checked it in game. I'm like, no, I gotta tweak it a bit. So really not how you would do it, but it ended up looking okay and gave Sent a very unique style, I guess. I actually think Sent is actually one of my favorite characters in this game. You say it very well. He has a lot of personality from square one, even when you don't know he's talking to you in real time. And just because he's 3D, he just stands out a lot. Yeah, that's correct. And he is, and I wish I actually had Unity open. He is actually a 3D thing in the scene, and this is like a semi-transparent texture over him. I also don't know what I was thinking with like, oh, in the future, let's make a futuristic screen where like, the screen is all hexagonal and, because it's futuristic. And I'm like, well, no, in the future, screens will just be like bigger and like just be the same. Just, but it is what it is. Because this gives him a bit of a blue tint, and his model isn't blue at all. It's just like it's like an untextured poly. So that's why in a lot of like in the Sent-chan fan art or what happened or what have you, you'll see Sent and they'll have like a blue tint, but really they don't have a blue tint. It's just the way the screen, the semi-transparent thing. I keep turning my space heater on and off because it gets warm, and then the moment it's off, it's like, oh, I'm cold. So I turn it back on. Here comes the best track in the game. The puzzle theme is like so good. in this game. It's like it's caught in my head. Okay, so I'll go over a couple things with the puzzle design. First of all, this as the first puzzle is actually like a very late addition. This one specifically, turn a square into a plus. The first one for a very, very long time was actually the last puzzle in the whole game, which actually not the second last one where you have to do the negative space with the circle, the little Pac-Mans. And Ether actually has a quote where, hang on one sec. Whatever hints here. Okay, so here she mentions that one video game, and she's like, oh, she's talking about Tetris. Originally, it was the old puzzle, and she referenced Pac-Man instead because you're supposed to make these little Pac-Man shapes in the corner. But when I changed the puzzle, a lot of these hints could stay because they're talking about their situation in the puzzle itself. But that one had to change, obviously, so I'm like, oh, we'll do Tetris, because tetrominoes are always made up of 4 squares. You can, I mean, it's not a single, but you can find the song on YouTube, and I mean, there's a lot of YouTube scrapers, you can just download it. So, because I noticed when I was doing some early playtesting, the other negative space one was a little too hard. And even with the hints, like, the hints make it easy for anyone to solve a puzzle. And that's actually like a big part of the puzzle system. All the puzzles are like riddles, and because they require a certain amount of like interpretation, like you have to be looking at it from the right way. I also want to say the hint system came before the puzzles, because you can't do puzzles like this without hints. Because if you just don't get it, you're stuck, and that sucks. Not being able to progress. So I wanted all the puzzles to be solvable without having to look outside of the game. And in some places I kind of failed at that. But that was like a big thing, was like you need to be able to solve everything without having to look up a guide, because that takes you out of the game if you have to like open a new tab and then like look up the answer. That sucks. No one wants to do that. So I like the hint system because, one, you get interpretations from different characters, and depending on the puzzle, they'll have different like suggestions, and some will be right and some will be wrong. And they give their hints a bit at a time, and to try and help the player get it themselves before the answer is given to them outright, which it often is eventually. But that was like so critical when designing these puzzles. It had to be. I know there's some people who like won't touch the hints and want to solve it on their own and get a kick out of that, and that's totally cool. But it needed to be solvable without leaving the game. So these puzzles could not exist without the hint system. They go hand in hand, and this is one of the things I'm the proudest of in this game, is the marriage of this like riddle mechanic and then the hints, which doesn't sound very exciting, but I think it really is a good solution. A lot of people have commented on it, a lot of people like it, and I think it was successful. The biggest complaint I got was I solved the puzzle before I could read all the hints, which, when that is the problem you have, you know you're in a good spot. So really happy with that. As for the mechanics of this is also done bad in Unity. It's so bad the way this is done. Although I did math out, it automatically does math to make these fit in the right way. It's like, I'm impressed that I got it working the way I did. I wouldn't do it this way again. How do you solve this again? I don't know. Like this. Oh my gosh. This animation is also done via, everything's done via crappy tweens, and it's like, I could do so much better now. But, you know, thankful for Simon for making those splashes, which still look nice. There's a lot of little extra characterization things that are like hidden in the hints. A lot of little tidbits you wouldn't know unless you clicked on them. Like small stuff. Some stuff is important, some stuff is hints, but some stuff's just small characterization stuff. Like you know, if you click all of Ray's hints, eventually you'll learn that he smokes. He plays Smash Brothers Melee. Just little tiny innocuous character things that are just buried there, and that's something I want to carry forward with Seance. When you guess a word that's wrong, you might get a bit of character stuff. Except in Seance, you don't know how many. I mean, you need to kind of discover the words yourself, because you can't just keep clicking on a thing. And no, you're getting all the who does Ray main? Ray definitely mains Fox. Like not even Ray plays Fox in Melee. Not even a question. Actually, no. Fox. He probably felt Fox Falco Duo main. Or you could die. Don't let it get to you. Yeah. I spent almost an hour on this first episode, but I'm jazzed. I'm ready to keep going. I'll do another couple, and then I'll probably continue off from a midway point, and I'll do more of these. That's right. That's why Ray's so sad when he loses his use of his arm, because he can't wave shine anymore. That's a very bad joke. That squelch is just used everywhere. This is a cheeky little animation. All right, probably just jump right into chapter 2. I wanted to end the first chapter with the CG, because they are impressive, and you want people to keep playing. And you always want to end with a cliffhanger, right? Because the serial nature of this, I really did want people to come back every week, so that was big. Yes, we did for the first bit. There's like the mandatory recaps, and then you get the optional recaps. The optional ones came more into play when the episodes were spaced further apart. I wish I had a webcam to wave at everyone, but I can't, so. A lot of this is something people complain about, and I totally get it. Like, just like keeping the blood thing hidden. Sure, keeping people from panicking, valid, I guess. But thinking about it more, like, I mean, it's just a contrivance of the plot. Doesn't ruin it, but next time I will try and avoid things like that, I guess. I don't know. A lot of hallways in this game. I have my mobile Twitch manager thing. I'm just going to open that, see what I can do from here. Nice. Cool. There's just so many lounges. Like, obviously it's not the best. Again, a function of like the resources they had. Just like a lot of lounges and like tables and chairs and stuff. Not as much rooms. A lot of hallways. Not the most exciting. And then you get to the exciting ones, like the boiler room and the sewer thing and the raise machine and the garden. But everything in between is like a lot of hallways. I would have made it more interesting if I could. But just a function of the resources I had. So here's the big expository bit. In addition to the intro, which I mentioned, I would redo it. This and the intro just had so many revisions of like writing, just because like one, the intro is the first thing you see, so it's like, how do I make it as good as possible? And here it's just like explaining the rules. It's going to be expository no matter how you do it, but you want to make it as short as you can, inject personality where you can, make it interesting at least. This track owns. Also, the music in this game is I still like it. As I will say again, You get a lot of you got to get a lot of scent personality in this conversation. And I guess going back to the intro real quick, another thing you listen to Seance, the quote-unquote intro is like so short, and just like it's a very in media res thing. It just gets right into it, and there's not a lot of expository stuff like this. And things come up only, like things are explained only as they come up, and I'm more happy with that kind of flow. But for this type of, the death game scenario, this is almost like an expected thing where the bad guy shows up and explains the rules. There's a bit of like seeding here. It's like, oh, you gotta. Oh, something I want to talk about in the last chapter. I forgot to. Oh, whatever. There's a good amount of like, put yourself first stuff here. That is not. That is probably should be brought up more than it was, and it does cause compounded with other stuff. It eventually causes distrust, which is part of the, the big bad guy plan. But probably could have played off of that a little bit more. Explaining the contacts thing. And the cheeky exit. And then doing the bit of like, how do people process this? Being told this, that's tough because real people don't have to interact with death games in real life, so there's not a lot of good realistic references for this. So that's one of the reasons there's a choice here. So the player could like kind of tailor Ink's reaction a little bit more to their liking, because you wouldn't want someone to like joke it off and then you'd be like, well, that's not how I would react. They just told you were gonna die, and you don't want people to be like, I wouldn't panic. I would keep my cool or whatever. So that's why these options are here, not because they really affect the story, just because it helps the player condition the story a little bit more to what their expectations are. So I'll go the realistic route. So this is the, more panicky route. Of course, he either comes down. Oh, coming in with the psychology. Gosh. And I don't mind that, like, a lot of I basically just made up all the psych stuff that she says, which is okay because I mean, she's not a psych student, and two, everything she would know are just like people's assumptions about being in psych. So I think that is actually fine and consistent with the rules of the universe. So this is Beth starts to give some characterization here where she like remains calm in the face of adversity. Yeah, this like first step to overcoming fears, understand it. And then like I'm kind of lampshading this with like, oh, I just sort of made that up, which is something I. Yeah, well, I didn't want to. Yeah, okay, real sex student. Yeah, I tried not to say anything like too outlandish, but obviously I'm not a professional. So the aloofness here, both of them shared in the sharing their aloofness. I think originally I was like, oh, I could have a custom thing here. I'm like, I don't want to. Whoops. I don't want to like bloat the game with like just random images of the puzzle and stuff. So because you loaded on browser, I was trying to be cognizant of like file size and stuff. Actually, I when I first uploaded to Congregate, the reason I wasn't on Congregate day one was because I exceeded their like file size limit. I'm like, oh no, gosh, like I can crunch it down, but there's no way I can get it below the limit. So I shot them an email, and it was like a really heartfelt like email. It was like, oh please, I worked really hard on this, and like, I just want to share my game with people. Could you make an exception for like the file size limit? And the person responded, yeah, no problem. Like it was like, something they do all the time. I think it's just there to like keep. I don't know why the precaution was there. Probably just keep people sort of in line, but I don't think it was like a real technical issue. And people could load it fine, as far as I could tell. It was a little tougher on Kong because there's like extra stuff it has to load. So it bloats a little bit. I gotta talk about who Sent is. Sorry, already starting to get a little analytical here. And this is the part of the story where, like, if you're into these types of games, then these types of passages are, can be interesting, And every kind of death game sort of goes through the same. Every kind of death game setup sort of goes through the same motions. But that's okay. That's just like that's just the genre, I guess. They gotta discuss who the mastermind is. I tried to be as consistent as I could with his like somethings and. Because even though people who play these types of games a lot are very used to these like trappings of the genre, to the characters themselves, it's new every time. So you like it. It can't go unaddressed, even if it's kind of treading old ground. I didn't like that dialogue anymore. That dialogue can. I would read that. This one doesn't really affect too much. I don't know why I have this. This is I guess from a time where like I had more choice in the story. But later it was like when I decided what the choices would be for. Because early drafts had some more like different stuff happening with the way the plot flowed. Because originally I wasn't gonna do this serial, and I was gonna do this like a branching thing with some other plot devices that made branching, and then I won't say time loops, but like that kind of thing possible. But then I just consolidated the plot a lot more, and I don't know. Some of these choices no longer really make a ton of sense. So let's go with that. Hotel. Yeah, so some of their differences start popping up. I think the game's better without the branching. It's obviously this game is very derivative of 999 specifically, and I made it because people who played that game wanted more in this genre, and because I thought it would be fun to write. And I've obviously borrowed a lot of elements. Everyone who makes a game like this borrows a lot of elements from, those types of, the kings of the genre, if it were. But you got to recognize when you're borrowing something and it doesn't work. And for some elements that I did, I probably borrowed them. Well, I still borrowed more than I should have. But that was something I recognized early on, like I'm not making a time travel game, so I really dropped the branching thing early. Seance does not. Okay, so the structure for Seance. The question is, does it have a serial structure like Exit Corners? The intention is for Seance to be a standalone release that is all playable all at once. there will be a demo that is the first chapter of the game. And generally the way the game is set up is it will be set up into chapters, but it won't be like Exit Corners chapters where they're pretty short. The genre will, or sorry, that's genre. I'm reading comments and like half reading them and half explaining. The sales chapters are a bit more like Phoenix Wright would be the closest thing, where each chapter is like a case, I guess. But there's an overarching plot. It is probably the closest I can compare it. The closest thing I can compare it to. It's like, oh, she's not my girlfriend. The classic. The classic. But, you know, you lean into those things a little bit, and I think people don't mind too much. This may be all a joke. Yeah. So you see the characters come out of the shell a bit more here. Someone did a really bang up job with the sprites. I'm talking about their contacts. Contacts was a, I think I actually came up with the plot device of contacts before I came up with the context. Because I thought, oh, that's kind of a cool little gimmick to this, the death game genre. So I actually came up with, I think, the contact thing before I came up with the reason for them. And a lot of this game was, I mean, you have to plan it out early, but context before context, that's right. You have to plan out the whole story before you start writing anything, basically, because it's everything's so like contingent on everything else. Get some clues here. There's a lot of like stray foreshadowing and so much dialogue of this game. I'm still impressed with like how I was able to do it. Oh yeah, this puzzle that will watch me struggle to complete it here. This puzzle that a lot of people didn't like because of how wonky the 26 is that you have to spell. God, it's been so long. I need to actually figure out how to do this. watch Creative Exit Corner struggle with its own puzzle. This is a puzzle I would definitely redo. The reason it is the way it is, with the contacts here, or with the 26 is because my brother was like an early playtester, and he figured, basically he came up with a way to. Oh shit! Okay, sorry. I'm thinking of the alternate solution. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking of exactly the alternate solution and not the Z. The Z is easy to do. The alternate solution is what I was referencing there. Sorry, which is not the actual solution. My brother came up with that, and I'm like, oh, that should be an alternate solution. Gosh, how do I do Z? Gosh. Like this. Sorta. Frig. Uh-oh. Yeah, I actually gotta remember this. I could get a hint, but not gonna do that. How do I do this? What's wrong with me? Thank you. Actually, what I'm gonna do is, my beer is empty. I'm gonna grab another beer for the, I guess, second half of the stream. I'll be right back. So you can, everyone can jam out to the music for a minute or two. I'm back. I got a Paper Moon Brute IPA from Muddy York Brewery. Shoutouts to Muddy York Brewery. I also got some almonds, so everyone can hear me chomp on those. Let me get caught up on chat. Sponsor, yeah, this is a stream sponsored by Muddy York Brewery. Right. I guess we'll just do this. Oh, it's sponsored by almonds. Sponsored by, what is it? Blue Diamond Smokehouse almonds. They're very salty. You can't see people when they're talking and the screen's up, which is unfortunate, but I think between the, obviously you got the name here, but I think the sound really helps communicate who is speaking when you can't see them. Sounds will have character portraits. Or you could die. Hey. Sorry, it's because of the overlay? Sorry, I don't know the context of that question, if that is a question. Or maybe it's a statement, I don't know. Oh, no, they can show up, and they actually do in Act 2, where, like, someone's on an end of the screen, like, they actually, not in Act 2, they start doing it as soon as Sent is speaking to them in real time. And that does happen, but it's just initially not. But I thought it made more sense when they're actually speaking to Sent that they should show up. But when they show up for like a line, you don't want to draw them to the screen for like one sentence, right? Yeah. Paper mache. Yeah, I say that because I had a couple of paper mache masks in my room growing up that looked kind of similar. I'm like, oh, maybe that'd be your point of reference. And of course, everyone's very right that her father's buying everything, but she doesn't know any better, so. This bit's brought up later. Yeah. So this is the stuff that actually starts to matter. Like, this matters way more for like character building or trust building. So this will make Beth and Ray like you more, and Liza and Ether like you less. The sound effect is it's iconic now. It's so funny. A lot of the sound effects in this game are referenced from or sourced from freesound.org, and specifically the locked door sound where the door won't open is used by a lot of other indie games, and every time I hear it, I'm like, oh my god, they also got their sounds from Freesound. One you might have heard of is Home by Benjamin Rivers, homehorror.com. You can check that out. He uses the same sound effect. So, he's also a Toronto developer. So, I usually make the chapter end on a cliffhanger. However, this one does not. This one isn't. It's just like a very vague cliffhanger. There's nothing to put here. I really did rack my brain for a long time, but there was no good cliffhanger to put there that made sense. So I was just hoping it was early enough that people were just like interested in the game bit that they'd want to play the next one. But all the other ones do have pretty bona fide cliffhangers. More mandatory recap. More almonds. Yeah, I guess it's just, again, more lampshading of, it's just nothing but hallways. This room specifically is, I just had to use it because it's kind of all I had for this chapter, because the location was totally irrelevant, and this is, like, the most boring room in the game, like room-wise. It's just walls and a door and a monitor. It sucks. This one sucks. I actually drew out, like, the layout of the hotel once, when I was just, like, trying to map everything out. And if you laid this out in, like, a real space, it does not make any sense at all. Like, it's not like rooms intersect with each other, but, it's just, like, the layout just, like, is just so much wasted space. This room does have a good amount of corners. That is correct. Originally, I wanted one of the plot points to be, people would make would loop in the rooms and then come out to a different room. Like, I don't know, say you got like a 9x9 grid and they started in like the lower left tile and they went like up one room, they went like up, right, down, left. Then the room they would be in, assuming they're all like the same size, is like a different room than the one from like 8 rooms ago. Yeah, it would be like a non-Euclidean space. Or Euclidean space. I don't know which one was the correct term, but it would be one of those. But that eventually got dropped. That eventually just didn't really fit into the plot. And that would have been a function of like, oh, things are deloaded when you're not in them, and it was just like a design oversight. But it was just too hard to make work and didn't really make sense anywhere. So that was dropped. Obviously a lot of things were dropped in this game. More things end up on the cutting room floor than they actually make into the game. Because you always get a ton of ideas. You just gotta pick out which ones are good. Referencing the last episode, oh my gosh. And this sort of outburst is just sort of a vehicle for Liza to chime in and be like, hey, we can call for help. Which is seems like a reasonable thing to do in this situation. Oops. Yeah, some weird bugs when you scroll back and things are still typing out. Will not fix. I had an arbitrary rule when I was making this game where you couldn't go more than like 2 chapters or something without contacting Sean, at least in Arc 1. Because he needed to be like a constant part of the plot. Because, like, early on, like, even in the, zombie story I mentioned a while ago, part of the plot was, like, you need a betrayal, It's not one of these games without someone betraying you, or betraying the group. So, that person needs to be in constant contact with everyone, or else the betrayal doesn't hit as hard. So even in Act 1, just Shaw needs to be always part of the picture. And this is not realistic. In 2019, you know, I mean, my Nona wouldn't have been able to use a smartphone, but I think most people would. The you know, old person not great at technology thing I leaned into was not great. I mean, didn't really add to her character at all, and wasn't necessary for the plot. And it's kind of a bad stereotype these days, so we'll be staying away from that in the future. Yeah, challenge chatting. There's just like, there are a lot of stories like this, so obviously you mentioned that this is a common thing. The specific reference Inca's making here is Saw, by the way, which not as big of an influence for me, but I do think the original Saw is a great movie. Subsequent ones, you know, the second one was watchable, I guess, but beyond that, it was just garbage. And this is setting up for the first setting up for the first twist of the game. Not the first twist of the game. Actually, that's not even true. The first big twist is the scent, not actually recording, not actually having recordings. But the next one, and the one that hits people pretty hard. Not hits people pretty hard, but like I got a lot of comments on in pre-production, was Beth's son being dead. I haven't watched any Saws past 3, so I guess I don't really know. But like, I saw the third one, I'm like, I'm not into this. I think Earl was, this is awful. This is not how you should name your characters, but I think Earl was chosen because, one, it's a dorky name, and one that someone might readily change, if they're forging a new identity or whatever. So that's why Earl is now known. But second of all, I think I chose it. One of the reasons I chose it was because early drafts, like every character matched up with an element, and Beth's was Earth. I'm like, Earl is kind of close to Earth. Don't do that. That's bad. But anyway, that's part of the creative process. The names do make sense when you put them all together. However, that's it's not that I wasn't aware of that, but that's more of a happy accident than I won't say that wasn't explicitly deliberate. Scent was short for sentient, is where the name Scent came from, and the other bit was like, oh, it's a neat little bit of foreshadowing, but it wasn't like I didn't even know if people would pick up on it, honestly. But everyone picked up on that. I mean, people delved into some of the dialogue a bit too much. It's very important that Ray is away for this conversation, otherwise he'd comment on it. Obviously, there's like this isn't like deliberate withholding of information, but it's just a coincidence, meaning this plot point doesn't come up until a much later chapter. Hey, and we have the burn down a house bit. Lot of early stuff. Like, obviously the whole plot was penned like before the writing really started, so I had the opportunity to do a lot of that. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with, like, honestly, I'm not saying every line is foreshadowing, but, like, there is a lot of that. There's even a little bit early on, I forgot to mention in episode 1 where Ether gets the date wrong. But she actually gets it right because she's a computer and she actually knows what day it is. But it's not commented on by Ink because it's pretty like an in-passing comment. But that was deliberately put there. Yeah. No, I know. I didn't mean that you had implied that. I just was like, when I was talking about the foreshadowing, I am also happy with the level of foreshadowing I was able to do without, I don't know, without making the dialogue too weird. There was a bit there about, there used to be a bit more about Ink's family, and then I just kind of pulled it back because that's not really important to the plot. It's just like, you know, he doesn't have a great relationship with his family. That's about it. That's all you really need to know, and I really dialed back on some of that. There used to be more backstory with like his dad and like mental illness, but I'm not the right person to be talking about that, and not really important to the main plot. So I dialed back on that way. Not way. I just dialed back on that a lot, basically. Now you get the one-on-one time with Ray. And there's a bit here about the Ray giving up thing. Early on, Ray's characterization was more centered around talent without ambition, but that's not really where his character ended up going. As I wrote more and more, he just became like, he became a different character than I thought. Originally, he was going to be more of a, he would be less abrasive and like smart, but really unmotivated. But now that's not the case. Now he's like a normal amount of motivation. Just was like, it doesn't like people type person, more of a lone wolf type person than a lazy genius. Very early iterations of Ray were like lazy genius, and that kind of is that little dialogue was a little bit vestigial. And Ray's so good at the logic ones and logic puzzles, but he's bad at the word association puzzles, I guess. I don't drop a lot of proper names in this game, but Darwin is one, and I mean some of the scientific, some of the psych stuff brought up later is, you know, you just like they bring up Freud or typical Foxcott, I mean. Wit's End was a great, that's something I didn't want to do like early, and Julian didn't do that one, but I was glad I was able to find someone who could just do the theme again at the piano. Sorry, I need some more almonds. They're good. They're so salty. I think at one point I had to, you know, be easy if I was, you know, I was just eating almonds and commenting, but earlier I had an auto play function where the text would just like type out, wait, and then type out more. But I was running into so many issues, I ended up dropping it. I actually don't have that in Sans yet. Maybe we'll add that later. Should be easier. I don't think I consciously teased Wit's End. Oh, maybe I did. Oh, I think it was maybe there was like one track left in the like the song list, so people knew there was one more, but they didn't. I don't know. I don't remember teasing it. And this the button style puzzle. This was early on in development where I still wanted to develop new types of puzzles before it took so long to like come up with new ideas and stuff. This is done so bad. Oh, gosh, this is done so poorly. Every screen of this game is me being like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do better. But you know. Oh, and I even have this highlighting. It should be doing that. So no, it was, the song wasn't teased early. What it was is, when I posted the song, the character sprite for Nolan was teased early in the thumbnail for that song. Like, I had his silhouette there, before he had actually appeared in game. I think is what you might be thinking of. Okay, red tape, green tape, blue tape, white tape, and black house. Ah, crap. I didn't even hit the right button. Okay, did it. Liberal use of gradients in this game. Right, embodying everyone who doesn't like riddles, or who doesn't didn't interpret a riddle correctly. This particular puzzle wasn't the worst with that. I didn't really get any complaints here. There was another puzzle later, because this one has like a light, dark, and then 3 different colors that are like the contestants will talk about them also, which is not the best solution, but does help with it. Later on, there's a puzzle that is like impossible to do. That was impossible to do if you were colorblind until I changed the colors. This so this is like she stutters a bit, but probably should have been more of a freak out moment. You don't want to. Yeah, she talks about it a little bit. Oh, I still can't believe it, because she doesn't want to look crazy. No, it doesn't want to look senile, I guess. But maybe should have been slightly more of a freak out moment. Forgot about this track. Does this track play earlier in the game? I don't think it does. All right. I got time for at least one more. So I'll do one more here. This, I didn't realize it at first. This is just like an idiom, right? But it turns out that this that sinking feeling, that title, shares its name with an episode of the Legend of Zelda cartoon. So there you go. Or Helmet's Hotel doesn't exist. Trying to keep tabs on the chat as well. Oh, I definitely skipped past this. Sorry, I was kind of clicking mindlessly while looking at the chat. I kind of skipped past it, but I'm glad I picked this one. Oh, it's where you can pick. Oh, we've traveled through time. Because 999 specifically like a time story, and a lot of people might be expecting like a time thing. I did want to put a little cheeky reference for the, or opportunity for the player to be like, it's time travel. But it comes off as seeming like a little bit out there. I still like that you're able to do this. Again, a lot of the choices are, other than some trust stuff, which is those choices. The choices that affect trust the most are the most obvious. When you're like, oh, you can side with this person or side with this person. And the other choices are just more for like giving the player an opportunity to be seen a little bit, or make the story fit their expectations of the genre a little bit better. And then Ether plays into it, of course, because she's programmed to like anything he says. Welcome back. And then it's like, yeah, there's just like mindless guessing. Enter. This room is like from the 3D rooms. This one might be my favorite, just in terms of like it actually makes sense. The textures are nice. The renders are nice. And this wasn't. I know the 999 has a a very famous elevator scene. This was not like an homage to that or anything. It's just that hotels have elevators in them. They are a good location for a spooky trap. That's the end of my thought there. Oh, similar to you can't have Sean and you can't have 2 episodes without Sean back to back. Similarly, Scent needs to be in almost every episode, or it can't be more than 2 episodes from the last time you saw him or heard him. Technically, Scent is a gender, but I do refer to it as him, as do the characters in the game. It's just kind of a thing people do. Oh yeah, what elevator do we want to go in, chat? Ray. Oh, okay. Couple Rays. Alright, everyone's saying Ray. I do like this choice. It's just, 1, a flavor add, 2, a pretty obvious trust add, 3, gives a little hook, a little point of discussion for, why you can't go in Liza's elevator. And 4, they all use the same background. That's efficiency. There's some dialogue here I don't like anymore. That I'll skip over. That I wanted, you know, to be like Ink being dorky and bad with women. I mean, him being transgender is like it doesn't gel with this great. So I would redo that if I had the opportunity. Things I do like is Ray will solve this for you. If you are bad. Not if you are bad, if you just ask him enough. Yeah, you can go with anyone except for Liza, because it's plot important. I mean, I'm glad Sant's personality shines through, even though he's not talking to him in real time yet. This is a, you know, when designing some of these, like, in-hotel hazards, obviously my resources were limited, so it'd be stuff like water that you couldn't see, or, you know, heat that is just a slight tint on the screen. Obviously not the best, but again, a function of the resources I had at the time. And yeah, that's right, you can't go with Liza. And because Scent has like a sort of special message for this puzzle I designed in like 15 minutes, and I think it's still good. It's just simple, and the shapes work out just perfectly. Boom. Right, we'll solve it for you if you want. There's a couple things I couldn't do in the hints because just the way I do hints is bad. And yeah, there is one. Yeah, some of these lines are quite good. There is one combination, to answer your question. There is one combination that will get Beth Slater and Ray and Liza to follow you, but it is a very exact combination of things that you need. Like, it kind of sucks to find, but it's just a very, you know, it's just a treat for people who really want to put in the time. It's I think I posted a comment that was like the code, but maybe with the bug fixing stuff I did, like the code doesn't necessarily work. I don't 100% know at this point. I know if you go through the what's it called, catch-up tool and make the right choices, you can get there, but the code might not work. Anyway. Hey, let's check the solution. We did it, Reddit. Wow, that's loud. Oh my gosh. Gosh, the leveling in this game sucks. Yeah, we did it, Twitch. I thought about putting this on Steam, but it's just like the work, like it's coded so bad. It's coded specifically for web for this. It would just be a lot of work for you know, I think it would not get there in terms of like what I would get back from the work I put in, and it sucks. I wish I thought of, put more thought into this early on in development. But I'm like, I never made this game with the intention of making money, which is, noble and all. I just wanted to make a cool thing. But I probably should have put more thought into that, if only because it opens doors in terms of who can play it. If you make money back on your thing, you can afford to put it on more platforms and stuff. Switch. Switch port. I'm not saying that Seance is definitely going to be on the Switch, but I think I'm doing things right enough that getting on the Switch, wouldn't be as hard. That has been in the back of my head for sure. I'm not going to say it's going to be on Switch for sure. It's probably going to be I have some friends who do porting, or some, industry acquaintances and other friends. They're friends. I'm going to, when it comes time for, crowdsourcing or something, I will ask them what it might cost for a port. I'm going to give them the source, and then we'll see what they say, and it might be a stretch goal, or I don't know. We'll see. Well, good news for you. Seance, I built it for Mac, and I haven't tested it that much, but someone did play through the whole thing, so, or the whole demo at least. So it should be supported for Mac. It's not a complicated game. Porting to Mac shouldn't be too bad. The PS5 can't handle Seance. The shaders are too difficult. Oh, and here comes the sent as one of us accusation. This comes up earlier than it does in most of these games because there's sort of the first big twist revolves around it, and before you subvert something, you do have to run with it for a bit. It's funny you say you want VR Seance. There is a game called Seance, The Unquiet in VR, which is actually a VR experience. I don't think Seance would make a very, very good VR experience. Because I don't know how you translate it. But there's another game called Seance that is on VR. They're not making that game anymore though, so I didn't feel bad calling my game Seance. I'll do one more chapter. I'm not pausing on every single line now, so we're getting through them a little bit quicker. Oh, why some people think he was one of them. He was going to reveal it later on. If things went to plan, he would have revealed it after Ray's Corner, I think. Yeah, it was going to be in Ray's Corner, or right after Ray's Corner, or when he has his arm in the thing, because that was supposed to be in your face. Ray's the only person that it was important to keep that from. And he just didn't want to share it earlier, mostly because Sean predicted that someone would come up with a theory that it was one of them, and then that would sow distrust between people, and that is good for the purpose of this game. Good old chair. I told you, there's a lot of chairs in this game. Here's some chairs. Oh, there might be a hidden 379 in the background here somewhere. Maybe? One sec. I think it might be at the top of the stairs, actually. Maybe. Yeah, there's like a couple ones on the walls. You can see them on the nameplates and stuff. Some Sean stuff. Oh, so this is here he gets the rundown of what's going on. I would have reworded this. Character stuff. Skip ahead this. This isn't too important. Boop, beep, boop. Yeah, the serial nature of the game was good for discussion. Obviously not as good for people who want to play the whole thing, but that's just the reality of how, you know, I was by the time episode 17 I got all those done. I was like, I really needed the motivation of people playing it to finish it, because I was working with like no. I had some like playtesters and stuff, but it was just tough. I didn't know if people would like it, and so you know, when 17 rolled around, I was like, I'm gonna just release this, and I'll make the rest and pay for the rest if there's interest, and there was, which is good. Yeah, sorry, there's a lot of chat coming in here. I'm just catching up here. Yeah, which is going to be interesting for Seance, because it's going to be... You're going to get the demo, and then it's going to be a while till the full game comes out. Unless I do an early access thing, which might be a good way to keep me motivated, which is like, you work on a chapter at a time, but they're like long chapters, and then you release those in installments. Might be a happy medium, and I have thought about this, but I don't know for sure yet. What I need to do is, once the demo's out, I need to finish up the plot, like what all the assets are I need for each part of the plot, and then from there I got to be like, okay, how much is it gonna cost to finish this game, and then from there I'd be like, okay, what's the best? I don't know, what's the best way to go about it? Do I don't know, do I crowdfund? Do I just get a grant? Can I fund the whole thing myself? Probably shouldn't do that. But we will see. Oh, so you learn a lot about Beth here. You either learn a lot about Beth or learn a lot about Liza. Yeah, crowdfunding, the thing about crowdfunding is it's so... it's not like I don't know how much work crowdfunding is. I know it's like a lot. It's a lot to do. But I think it I would rather for crowdfunding specifically, I'm thinking of Kickstarter, because at least it's a big push, and if you don't get there, you don't get there. But then you can at least you can wipe your hands of it then. Whereas, something like Patreon maybe is that's just a constant, every month, depending on what your reward tiers are, every month is you need to keep putting out Patreon content in addition to your game you're trying to make. So it's tough. It's tough without a dedicated person on a community team, which is not a luxury that indie devs have typically. It's tough. There's no great, if people could always get games funded and made, more would get made, more would get funded. But it's tough. It's really tough out there. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Patreon. When I say Patreon, I mean just the monthly, the typical Patreon cadence. If there's a monthly thing, and you give a bit every month, and the creator gives a bit, shares some stuff every month, or posts some Patreon exclusive stuff every month, which is the ongoing nature of it scares me. So I would rather do one big push. And I know you got to keep people updated with your Kickstarter after, but it's the brunt of it is at the start. we'll see. Hopefully that the first demo won't go alongside a Kickstarter, but I'm gonna keep polishing it up, and we'll see what if I have a second demo or something. Beth or Liza? Let's go Beth. I like Beth. Beth is I'm not saying she's unsung. People like Liza a lot, but Beth is I think my favorite character. She's not based on my grandmother, but she is slightly based on my grandfather actually. My no-no on my father's side. I remember when I was growing up, we would have Sunday dinner at my nona's house. That's my grandfather at his house every Sunday, and it was always it was always delicious. They're Italian grandparents; they knew how to make a meal. My nonna would make pasta, chickadellis, and meatballs, and my grandfather would like barbecue ribs, and we had have a delicious salad from his garden. And one Sunday we were there, and they were having, so I have my father's side, and him and his siblings were arguing about something. I don't even remember what it was necessarily. It might have been about my grandparents, but at some point, they were arguing. The argument was getting heated, and my nono just he didn't speak a lot. He was a pretty quiet dude. And at one point in Italian, he said "finito," which is done. We're done here. And then that just quelled the argument totally. So that's where Beth's kind of where she comes in and she stops arguments between Ray and Liza. That's where that's from. It's like something my grandfather did only once or maybe a couple times. But it really left an impression on me, I guess, and that's, I guess, part of the reason why Beth is the way she is. It's tough. Yeah. Oh, and her necklace. So originally, the necklace doesn't mean anything now. Originally, I actually did have it mean something. But I thought that was too... It wasn't right. Because as you know, Beth's son, she believes, put a gun on his mouth and pulled the trigger. And the pendant came from... This is getting dark, and this is getting a little bit dark. So I guess, I don't know. This is dark and too personal for, someone else, which is why it does not mean anything anymore. But I guess this is where it came from. I was when I was younger, obviously, my stories come from when I was younger. When I was younger, I was at, the optometrists, I want to say. And my mother... recognized the person at the front desk of the optometrists and gave them a big hug. And they chatted a bit, and they seemed to know each other. So I guess I asked her later when we left the optometrists. How do you know her? She said, she's from the francophone community in Niagara, which my mother's francophone. So. My French is so bad now. And it's something I noticed about this woman who was the optometrist's front desk, is she had this very, very striking gold necklace, and it was like a teardrop shape, and it was just it's so no matter what you were wearing, you would always be able to pinpoint that necklace. And I actually asked about it. It was I commented on it when we left. I'm she had a really nice necklace. And my mother's her son's in there. I'm what? Or sorry, I don't know exactly how it came up, but basically, this woman with this teardrop-shaped pendant had her son's ashes in there. And her son died the same way Beth's son died. And I don't know if I was like super conscious when I was like, oh, she should have a pendant, but like I'm sure it was on some level. But that, I mean, Beth's pendant is not filled with her son's ashes. That's like that's not my story, and that's too personal of a thing to put in there. But I mean, that memory never left me. I'm like, I didn't believe that because the person at the desk was like cheery, and they were hugging and stuff, and I didn't realize she had gone through that trauma. And I guess that just stuck with me. So I guess sorry for the downer there. But I guess that's where Beth's necklace is from originally. Like in my, I don't even remember if that was like subconscious or like a conscious thing. That's definitely where it comes from. Not actually directly tied to that as part of her character backstory, but that's why she has a pendant. Beth being sad. Then we got the cool door. And again, I think I mentioned the 3D backgrounds went through a lot of different people. This door is made by a Nathan Gale, and he did a great job with it. Dang! So we're not using the like, what are these called? Posts, or I don't know what they're called. We're not using what I thought we were using. But an old version of this actually had a 379 kind of hidden in it, where there was as part of the pattern, there's like a triangle and then like a septagonal thing and then a nonagonal thing. But that didn't end up making it into the final game. Oh, I like this one. I like this puzzle. There's definitely some good comments with the Ray puns. It's a plus whenever the puzzle can have a cool pattern, and then you figure it out, and then it makes more sense. The Infinity one is similar. Let's do the Ray puns. Not good. Not good. Even here, he's like, oh, my one ray of hope is that lazy programmer. But this kind of is also a little vestigial. He's not really lazy. That was an old part of his character, but it wasn't, anymore. So you can see little vestigial bits there. Rainy. Now this is where he's like Ray B's, like it's so bad. It's like very dumb, but a kind of dumb I can get behind. It's like, I guess you could say I hate raisins. And then this line is good. It's like, why do you keep looking back at the stairs with that smug grin on your face? Which is something that I would probably do in real life. People, when I have a joke stewing, people know. I've sat on jokes for like months, especially this year. I've sat on jokes for months waiting to bring them up at like work Zoom meetings. Really bad puns and all that stuff. I love it. I guess my stand-up crazy go anywhere. There's a couple parts in this game where you can see this is a certain type of apostrophe. There's two types of apostrophes. There's like directional ones and like non-directional ones. I tried to make all of them directional ones, but some of them still went through the cracks. Like this one is just like a flat one. Anyway, let's finish this, I guess. Oh wait. Okay. gosh. It's been a while, right, guys? Give me a break here. I used to like just go through these so fast. I'd have like the fastest way to solve all of these memorized. Self jab there of who the hell would find this kind of game entertaining. Or you could die. Oh, cool. Chat stuff. No, there's all the ink sprites are in the game. Did I say something? It's just that like the first one that's shown is like him, like just the sprite of him facing the camera, which is not used anywhere except for the intro because you can't see himself. I don't know. I did try to unconsciously make it so that like some chapters have the puzzle at the end, some of them have them in the middle, and some of them even have them like closer to the beginning. To keep the people guessing, I guess, and just keep the pacing of chapters a bit unexpected. Teamwork is garbage. Very Ray. Actually, I recently replayed through The World Ends With You, and there's certainly a small bit of show me to Miyamoto in Ray. This is garbage. Sir, I'm sure that had some influence on my creative process. Either with the buttering up, and then Ray. Actually, Ray. I didn't even remember he had this line, but they probably spent a little bit too long talking about whether Ray should share his findings or not. But then the findings are, some early clues. Thinking. Then there's a bit of I don't dislike the exposition here, but I probably could have navigated it a bit more or spread it out in different chapters. So a bit about Beth being a nurse because she knows about sunlight and stuff. Mentions casinos. Never been to a casino. Ties into her liking poker. It's all connected. But maybe a little inelegant. Maybe it gets he's like, let's not get distracted because they go on a pretty crazy tangent there. Yeah, good. Actually, going over some of the, like I said earlier, going over some of the dialogue now, or some of the writing now, just in general. Now that I have not seen it in a while, some of it's pretty good. Some of it's not bad. Pretty decent. Or hey, maybe you don't need to pretend. Good line. Good line. And this obviously all plays into the space is cheap because it's VR. And then again, immediately after being berated for his awful puns, makes another awful pun. Oh, I don't even remember. Yeah, I forgot about this. So Beth knows about underground facilities, and she knows about the laws around underground facilities. Because they need a sprinkler on each underground floor, which is true. I think there's a worldwide building code that's you need sprinklers on all underground floors because you gotta be able to fight fires. It is in the International Building Code. Once looked into getting underground home, and this is like a deep cut because like part of this was like she looked into it because underground homes were more earthquake resistant, I want to say. I definitely did do my research. I just forget exactly what it is, but I think it's something along those lines because of the earthquake in her backstory. There's a big door sound effect for the big door. Something I'm excited for Seance. Sorry to keep bringing up Seance, but it's just because it will be a standalone game, I'm not as worried about file size, so we can be more liberal with assets and stuff. Oof. God, like, I forgot how, there's like a good amount of variety in these tracks, and they still come in, like, this episode, what, 5? And there's still new tracks coming. It's possible. And I really wanted the player to like think about this send as one of us type thing. Think it's Ether, think it's Ink, think it's anyone. Because I did want the twist of Sent having recordings be actually real time to be impactful. So I really wanted to get them in that headspace. This one, I guess, isn't too big of a cliffhanger either, but it's just it's more of like a continuation of the Send as One of Us stuff. And of course, the bit about spelling and grammar obviously is alluding to all the things that come later, or when he figures out the Send is not it does not have recordings because of the phrasing of some of the things he said. And then secondly, like even later, it continues to figure things out with like ciphers and even the exit/corners thing. Like Ink gets so much mileage out of like little grammatical technicalities and spelling technicalities. You know what? This is fun. I'll do one more. I'll do one more. Maybe I'll do 2 more. I'm definitely not going past chapter 7 because that's probably a good break point, but. We'll keep going for a little bit. And these are getting a little bit faster anyway. And I'll try and, I'm not quite speed through, but, I'll pause on things that I think are relevant. Yeah, actually, this is making me want to replay this myself. Like, not even, like, in this, like, sense of, like, you know, commentary, just, like, playing through it as a player. This is one of them. I like the rendering here. It's one of the best rendered scenes in the game, for sure. For the 3D ones. See the FKN. Yeah, the backgrounds are 3D. I mean, the asset itself is 2D, but it's made in 3D and rendered and exported. That's why we reuse so much stuff like the hallways and chairs and what have you. And then later on, what I did is when I no longer had access to the 3D people, is I just Photoshop remixed and photo bashed the hell out of the existing assets to just make them, you know, different colors or whatever. It wasn't great, but we got there. This one's pretty FKN strange. I always like that joke. This is a weird puzzle in that it acts different than some of the other ones in the game, which I guess just some early game weirdness. It's not like a huge deal. Everyone's looking. See, this was commentary on 2019. Everyone's just looking at their phones, man. No one wants to solve the puzzle. We live in a society. Millennials these days. Wow. That's a long... I mean, I guess quarantine is like everything you do on your phone, you do on your computer, but I'm still got my phone hooked up. Well, it did. The game did come out 3 or 4 years ago. Actually, yeah, it came out in 2017. But the game is set in 2019. Which, you know, the game quote unquote ended in 2019. I really wanted the final episode to line up with the date in game. So there's a bit of like weird, yeah, a little bit of weirdness here where they have to look, like, find a valve, which is not really a thing they do later. There's a couple little in-universe puzzles, but because the puzzles end up being so relegated to screens, there's not a ton of this. Yeah. Why couldn't you be a normal sophomore? I went through the roommate experience in university. My roommates were good. Yeah. Renders, am I right? Oh, I clicked through that way too fast. But it's mostly just a trust thing. Important clue. Important clue, guys. And this is the first, you know, you want players to be able to prove they are smart. So that's why there's a little dialogue option here where you can be like, what? Even if players don't actually know what they're selecting that for, people are typically drawn to that type of thing. Because you want to give them the opportunity, like, part of the mystery is, like, you want to give them the opportunity to solve things themselves before the characters solve things. So. That sound effect is never used again in the game. This was, again, originally a CG, but I'm like, save on file size. And here we go with the, we start dark. This is just like a tint applied to all of the, so now the sprites and the background start getting tinted. So Ray ended up leaning less into the lazy bit and more into the lone wolf bit. And this is more of the remix version. The original version of the song of Battle of Wits or whatever, I think it's called Last Stand, the high intensity version, was more like siren-y. It sounded more like sirens, but it was less good for like a long listen if you're stuck on the puzzle for a long time. So we ended up making it more, I don't want to say more chill, because it's not more chill, but it's an easier listen. The instrumentation is easy. I like when Beth owns other people. And I forgot about this, but I do like this where when it's a high intensity situation, you're talking to all the contestants at once, not one at a time, because it just makes more sense. When it's like, we have to do this soon or we'll die, it just makes more sense that it's a continued conversation. I'll click on a couple. Ray talks about saunas. We had a, growing up, we had a sauna in the house that my dad ordered, but I never used it once. Not once. These days I definitely would, especially during quarantine time where I'm just always cold and need stuff to do. But I never went to our family sauna. It wasn't like a fancy thing. We weren't like rich or anything. It was just like a luxury that my dad ordered. It was like a pop-up one. I'm gonna solve this. Okay, what is it? K, N, I think. Well, it's Celsius. And D. Am I insane? No, I'm wrong. No. Oh, wait, no, it's the inverse. Okay, sorry. DN C F K. Yeah. Dev needs help with his own game. So there's a bit of dialogue here that I like. I sort of guessed the other two, but it looks like I'm right. This, based on some comments I got, did resonate with people because anyone who solved the puzzle quote-unquote normally without looking at all the hints did the same thing, where they recognized, you know, the obvious ones like Kelvin, Celsius, and Fahrenheit, and then just guess the other two. I got a couple comments about this, and it really put some stuff into perspective where, like, players like when they are seen. I like to provide opportunities for players to be seen in ways like this, which is something I'm carrying into Seance going forward. There's definitely a lot of opportunities to be seen. And also, just like Ray recoiling to Beth opening the door. I really wanted the grandmother character to be tough, because no, my own grandmother was tough, also. Oh, and a bit of like, did you just slap Ray across the face? Which is obviously setting up for the next chapter. On the big argument. They start yelling at each other. Obviously, okay, so this is obviously a bit of foreshadowing here. Only my actual grandchildren. Ray's like, Grandma, only my actual grandchildren have the right to call me that. I mean, and then for the rest of the game, which is basically just this chapter, the only person to call her that is Liza. Why? I don't know why there's a bunch of extra A's here. Did I do that on purpose? Anyway, Liza calls her grandma, and she is her grandmother. Oh my gosh. Just a bit of foreshadowing there. Did I do, like, this seems like I must have done this on purpose. Yeah, I know it could be interpreted as like her thing. I just don't remember doing that at all, so. I do get the intention of like. I get why that has multiple lays in it. I just don't remember doing that is the only thing. So here's the big gambit. So I don't know I don't think anyone here necessarily was playing in the first week, because in the first week episodes released every day instead of every week, and then later every month or every year or whatever. But I don't know. This was a big like point in the story where you either got hooked for the rest of it or like dropped off. Was the big episode 7 twist, which conveniently comes at the end of the first week. We're doing it. 3-hour stream. Last one. Okay, this is actually the last one. Another mandatory recap. And I make pretty liberal use of what happens in the gutters of the story, and by that I mean what happens in between the episodes. And in this one, obviously Ink divulges his plan. And there's, I guess, a trope associated with this where if a plan isn't if a plan is explained on screen, it's going to go wrong, and if a plan is not explained on screen, it's going to go right. Which, I don't know, definitely is very common, both of those scenarios. And I guess this game plays into that a lot, but I know, it's just fun to think about. So the intention is the player starts and they don't know what they're talking about. So the contestants gambit, they have their own plan of trying to squeeze the truth out of Ink and Ether. And then Ray threatens violence, but of course he's not going to act on that. He's brash, but he's not, he wouldn't do that. And so, I did want to keep the player in suspense while they were working on the puzzle. So for a long time, this actually used to be the kind of the puzzle that had the braille hint that Liza could solve, but nobody else could. That was here for a long time, and then later I just thought it was too much to put that here. That puzzle here, along with all the sense stuff that happens after, and then also have this huge clue. So I decided to move the clue later. And then I put another puzzle here. And I like this one. Just gotta remember how to do it. This one definitely has an alternate solution. Let's try... Gosh, I was hoping to just breeze through these, but I actually got it. I don't remember these, so I just gotta think about the solution again. Oh, and this used to be repeat the pattern, but then later someone found another alternate solution that was just all blanks technically worked, so I had to use at least 2 different tiles. The clue to who the murderer is? No, the clue, there was a clue to Liza's blindness. But I thought that was just too chock full of, like, this was already full of, like scent stuff, and I didn't want to add those extra, like, character clues for Liza here, specifically. Paint, yeah, paint would do it. It's like absurd, like something like that. I don't know. Oh, yeah, that was it. Cool. I just was kind of going off memory there. It was like the first two, and I'm like, okay, this seems right. So this is like a big hook point, or like, again, a lot of this game, of this, like, you know, in-universe death game is like players, or like the contestants kind of going along with the big master plan. But there definitely needs to be the small victories along the way, or else, like, it doesn't feel, you know, there needs to be the hope that the players can overcome the challenge that they're presented with. Otherwise, it's just an exercise in, like, torture and whatever. Like, there needs to be the victories along the way, which is why this hook, Chapter 7, where things don't go according to the Mastermind's plan, is so important. And it's, again, it's not like a Zero Escape where you can explore this in, like, different timelines. You need to just bake it into the main plot. I stand by that this is just like a really important part of the game. You don't want like a downward spiral, because if the game was just people, like, the entire game was like on rails and the contestants like did what the game master intended them to, it would just be a total downward spiral. And even if they begrudgingly survive their corners, there just needs to be extra wins along the way. Because even though it's like a death game or whatever, you do want to... I wanted a thing that was hopeful at the end. The slap. So the characters look a little bit different in the last CG versus here, because those CGs were made by a Simon Sweetman, who just has a different way of drawing characters than Sedona. So obviously, not... in a perfect world, the same artist is doing all the art, but the realities of it is typically people don't have the bandwidth for that. So they look a little bit different in those two scenes. But that's okay. That's just, I accept that. You be the smug doesn't matter, but so it gets to be cool here. I'm still pretty happy with how this moment, like, holds up. This track is one of, like, I'm not saying it's a bad track, but it's one of the tracks that didn't land as well as some of the other tracks in the game. Yeah, I'm glad people like this moment, because I did try and engineer this to be like a moment where you are like officially into the story. Tie notes of the game discussion later. And obviously this is literally directly referenced later, but another bit of foreshadowing here. And of course, Ink's got to be able to, you know, talk about the cool things he discovered. And again, another opportunity for the player to be smart. You want to give the player that opportunity. And this, I mean, this will be obvious to anyone who has played the game. Or sorry, not obvious to anyone who played the game, but I just like anyone who like caught the other choice will definitely know that it is Hello Contestant. Yeah, demeanor is probably not the right word. Smug. Vocation or something. Random thought. I do still like the font I use in this game. Blue Highway is the font, but it's a good mix of stylish and readable. It's tough when you're making a visual novel. People are going to be reading a lot. You really want to pick a font that's readable above everything else, above any stylistic choice you might have. Like they need to be able to read a lot of it and not get annoyed or get sick of it or have difficulty reading it. You make fun of Comic Sans, but everyone can read Comic Sans. It's a little cheesy, but there wasn't a ton I could do. I only had so many scent models, so. The begrudging recognition from Ray Senpai. Yeah, if I did that now, I would have an animation where he like more obviously comes to the front, but it's just a bunch of gross programmer tweens right in this build, so it is what it is. And then there's some Liza stuff here that doesn't come in until way late. Yes. Obviously, if I had more resources, we'd actually show this somewhat. I mean, not without being too graphic. But you know, you gotta sell a lot of things via pros here. What is her haircut anyhow? Oh, sorry, for what character? Oh, Liza? Yeah, pixie cut. I don't know haircuts. Maybe a question for Sedona, who designed the character. But I don't know. I dig it. Liza's suspicion doesn't come up until like, you know, 15 chapters from now. All right, that will be it. That I'm gonna call it here. Big game. What is it? Yeah, let's end it here. I'm glad I got as far as I did. I will continue this later. I'm not gonna do this like super frequently because I do want to get Seance out to everyone. I'm actually very, very excited for everyone to play Seance. The demo's very close. We're just waiting on a couple assets. I think people will like it. I hope. So the plan is, yeah, we're gonna try and get a demo out that's just for people who I already have in my like network. And Seance is not part of the same universe as Exit Corners. Seance universe has magic, so it can't work in the same universe. There'll probably be a reference or two, you know, but I'm really not gonna get too into the weeds with it. But yeah, the plan is early demo for people currently in the network, and then a second demo with more polish. Maybe to go alongside crowdfunding campaign. Well, yeah, like it could work. Yeah, there's nothing that's going to be like directly contradicting anything that happens in Exit Corners. It's just that like I'm not interested in building like a Percon a cinematic universe or anything. You know, I just want to make some stories that are cool, and it's not important that these are. Yeah. I just want to make some stories that are cool, and they really don't have anything to do with each other at all. ECU, that's good. Okay. I guess last round of questions, but then I'll probably peace. I don't know if there even is any questions, but I won't be playing any more chapters. I'm gonna take a look at the standings here. Ether always likes you, you know. I don't know what I'm gonna do when I unpin that message eventually. Seance is just gonna be a standalone. I mean, listen. If on the off chance it blows up and I can make a career out of making Seance games, it will be a series. But like otherwise, I'm just planning on being a standalone. I don't want to make anything that's. I don't want to make anything that requires more games to like get the full value out of. Because I have so many ideas and so many things I want to do. I want to make a lot of individual complete experiences, and then that's it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to. This is like not my full-time gig. I don't want to make a series. I just want to make individual games. They take long enough to make that I don't want to get into the weeds with that. Thank you. I don't know. Blackwell series. I will need to look that up. But I mean, you'll be able to play the demo soon, and you can recalibrate your opinion when that happens, I guess. Thanks for watching, everyone. It was fun. I actually really enjoyed going through the game again, and somehow I'm not like totally like I don't totally have a sore throat or anything, so that's good. Yeah, no, it was good fun. It was good fun. I will. So if I got to chapter 7 today, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 more of these, depending on how motivated I feel. I would like to get through the whole game. Obviously it'd be a different, would be a different story if I was doing this full time, but like, you know, it's a work-life balance, and I got a good game dev job that is good and doesn't like force me to work like a gajillion hours, so I'm very thankful for that. So I would like to take advantage of that by not working myself to the bone off hours. So no, I was not working on Cyberpunk. Yeah, no, my employer's good. We do mobile games, which is, I know, not everyone's favorite thing, but they don't like make you stay late every week for a year. So I'm very fortunate for that. And you still build the essential skills you need as a game designer. Okay, is there anything else I want to go over? Options? No, nothing exciting here. This is so bad. I don't even want to look at this. Gosh. Okay, I'm gonna call it there. Have a good evening, everyone. Stay safe, stay sane. Hope everyone makes it through this pandemic in one piece. And we'll do this again sometime. Oh, sorry. Character voice. Okay, sorry. Character voice. That's the chirping when characters speak. Not really communicated very well, but you can turn that off if you don't like it. The language for that in Seance is more explicit. But anyway, gonna call it here. Take it easy, everyone, and see you next time.